If you went to a public school in America, you may have some memories of butchering the recorder in elementary school. You might have had the opportunity to join a choir or a band in middle school, and maybe you even continue that into high school. These are all pretty common experiences throughout America's school system. Even if you didn't participate in these activities, you probably know someone who did. Most people will agree that music is a very important part of education as a whole. I interviewed 3 of my peers to get their opinions on the importance of music education. My interviewee, Maddie Mello, a soccer player, had this to say, quote, "For musical or even any aspect of creativity, there are different ways for people to reflect and see themselves a part of something. I feel like it's kind of detrimental for schools to not have those types of programs, so kids are able to see themselves a part of the school and what it stands for." And I couldn't agree more. When you join a club or a sports team, you are becoming a part of the school community. It's the same for music students. It's important to be a part of a group of people who have similar interests while growing up. My other interviewee, Emma Phillips, brings up another great point. Quote, "It gives them, the students, a way to participate if they don't have the money to. Lessons cost money, ensembles cost money, so having it in a public school makes it accessible to every student. This is another reason as to why music education is so important in public school settings, and one that we'll circle back to later. I think my final interviewee, Crystal Cottrell, sums this up beautifully. These programs are good because you bring something out of a kid that you never knew was there. They get into it, and the interest just grows over time, and they end up pursuing something like that. It gives kids something new to try." It was clear that all my interviewees and I agreed that music is vital to public education in America. So I started to ask myself, if music education is so important, why are music programs around the country facing funding cuts? Emma spoke in length during their interview about the funding issues within their own department in high school, which is the main reason I wanted to look further into this issue. I found 2 reliable, scholarly sources in the Rhode Island College Library database to help me answer my question. The first source, Music Booster Groups, Alleviating or Exacerbating Funding Inequality in American Public School Music Education, is a very technical article that speaks in length about how music booster and funding groups affect the gap in funding in different areas. A few key findings really stood out to me. 1. Music teachers across the country agree that outside and/or private funding was, quote, "an important component of providing a quality music education to their students." 2. Wealthier communities had wealthier booster groups. Some of these groups had to raise so much money because they had to pay their music educators salaries and benefits. Also, these wealthier groups may be adding to the funding inequality not only state to state or district to district, but also within different schools in a district. We can gather from this article that government funding is not enough to sustain music programs in public schools, and the outside funding that these programs receive widens the gap between them. This provides some answers to our concerns, but ultimately leaves me with more questions. Our second source, Revisioning and Reinstating Music Education After the Great Recession, talks less about the funding inequalities themselves and focuses more on the steps 3 districts took to revise and reinstate their music programs following massive funding cuts. Although this data cannot be used to generalize the steps other programs have taken, I believe that these districts can be used as a model for other districts wanting to take on this task. Instead of taking the exact same steps, we can form a general guide to revisioning and reinstating music education programs. Here's what I came up with. 1. Speak with staff, students, and the community to help understand the needs of the people. 2. Make a plan of action. Think of what changes you want to make and how you can make them. And 3. Carry out the changes. This may mean hiring new staff, changing schedules, drafting new budgets, and more. It's important to note that you will need a willing and able staff to be able to carry out changes. Both articles explained a lot and helped me understand more about the funding issues within music programs, but both left me with lots of thoughts and questions. After hearing more about other issues within education, I began to ask myself, why music isn't seen as an important part of curriculums in public schools. I have a few theories about this, but no definitive answer as of now. Our second source does mention that music is often seen as, quote, nice, but not necessary. I agree with this statement, but I also believe that the answer to this question lies in Common Core curriculum and standardized testing practices. The goal of Common Core and standardized testing is to, well, test. This works well for subjects like math or science, but music is incredibly subjective. There aren't many ways to test an ensemble if there is no objective way to look at the subject. The only way I can think to test an ensemble would be to include them in festivals where they can be adjudicated. Even this isn't perfect, as each festival will have different judges who have different preferences. This is something that I hope to continue researching in the future. Now that you know more about the funding issues within public school music programs, I leave you with this question. Why do you think music education is important, and what would you do to change music programs in America?